I discovered my therapist was my ex-wife's brother, feeding her information about my mental state for our custody battle. The custody hearing was coming up in 3 weeks, and I felt more confident than I had in months thanks to the progress I'd been making in sessions. My therapist had been helping me work through my anger issues and anxiety, giving me tools to handle the stress of potentially losing access to my kids. What I didn't know was that every breakthrough, every vulnerability, every moment of weakness I shared was being systematically reported back to my ex-wife's legal team. The discovery happened completely by accident on a Tuesday afternoon, when I was picking up my prescription at the pharmacy near my therapist's office. I was standing in line behind an older woman who was having trouble with her insurance, so I had time to glance around at the various health pamphlets and notices on the bulletin board. That's when I saw a small business card tucked between flyers for flu shots and diabetes screenings. The card had my therapist's name on it, but underneath was a different last name than what I knew him by, and it mentioned Family Mediation Services. My stomach dropped as I read the card more carefully. The last name was the same as my ex-wife's maiden name, the one she'd gone back to using after our divorce. I stood there holding that little piece of cardboard, feeling like the ground was shifting under my feet. The woman in front of me was still arguing with the pharmacist about her copay, but I couldn't hear anything except the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I left the pharmacy without getting my prescription and drove straight home, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Once I got to my apartment, I immediately started digging through every document I had related to the divorce proceedings. I found my ex-wife's contact information and saw her brother's name listed as an emergency contact. The first name matched my therapist's first name, but the last name was different from what he'd told me. The realization hit me like a freight train. This man I'd been pouring my heart out to for 6 months, telling him about my struggles with depression after the divorce, my fears about being a good father, my financial stress from the alimony payments, all of it had been going straight back to my ex-wife. I thought about all the times I'd broken down in his office, admitting to moments of rage where I'd punched walls or thrown things, talking about how overwhelmed I felt trying to balance work and parenting time. I spent the next 2 hours pacing around my living room, trying to piece together the timeline. My ex-wife had recommended this therapist to me, saying she'd heard good things about him from a friend. She'd even offered to help pay for the sessions, which I'd thought was generous given how bitter our divorce had been. Now I realized it was an investment in building a case against me for the custody hearing. My phone rang around 8 that evening, and I saw my ex-wife's number on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. She started talking about how she'd been thinking about our upcoming court date and wondered if we could work out some kind of compromise. She mentioned specific things I'd never